Hello, I am Maria Luiza, and together with Livia, I'm going to talk about the importance and contradictions of COP30 for the English assignment. First of all, what COP is? It stands for Conference of the Parties, and it is an annual event which unites governmental authorities and companies who are signatories to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. It has the objective to discuss and draw actions to improve collectively the combat against the consequences and causes of global warming. Important people like Denmark's Queen Emmanuel Macron, which is the President of France, and representatives of countries of the Latin America, Europe, Africa, Asia, the whole world showed up at the event. Since it happens annually, every year goals and investments are established, but the question is, are they being fulfilled? Let's see in the video.
Wake Up 30 in Brazil, Belém, Pará, leadership role. In global discussions on climate and sustainability, it allows the country to demonstrate its actions and the potential in their area, seeking to reconcile discourse with that reality of environment preservation. It increases the local and economic development, creation of temporary jobs, infrastructure such as basic sanitation, urban mobility, and hospitality, and lasting actions for the local population. Also, the achievement attracts investments. International visibility can attract foreign investment in areas such as clean energy, environment technology, and the bioeconomy, boosting the country's sustainable development.
Well, so first let's talk about things that happened in the event. First, the positive achievements. The term African descent people was mentioned for the first time in the text, stating that these groups, as well as indigenous, women, local communities, and young people, are very important so the goals they set are reached. Another document finally recognizes that native people are indispensable to decrease climate changes with their ancestral knowledge about the sustainable use of nature and must be considered for long-term policies. Besides that, the importance of demarcating the territory is also reinforced. Furthermore, a text with global goals of climate adaptation was approved and must be improved within the next 2 years. Therefore, it is necessary to have an organized operation to actually make it happen and to expect the results, of course. Needless to say, there are also negative points. Fossil fuels is not mentioned in the final text, so they will add the discussion for the next year, which is disappointing and frustrating since the main cause of the climate change is the excessive use of fossil fuels. Then why had they let the subject die when it should be a priority? Besides that, the text doesn't improve the discussion of deforestation. It ended basically the same thing as the COP29, which is not very surprising since recent governmental decisions hadn't really been efficient with this question. And at the same time, they made a very beautiful space for the event. The lack of good management was present, showing up with restrooms without water, excessive heat, and very expensive food. The local population and tourists had complained a lot about this issue.
Also, there is explicit contradiction in COP30, especially regarding oil exploration. Norway and G7 countries like United States, Canada, and United Kingdom are the richest nations in the world, but also some of the countries that exploit the most. At the opening of COP30, the President Lula discourse defended actions to overcome the dependence on fossil fuels and Amazonian deforestation. At the same time, he particularly articulated IBAMA, so the petroleum exploration could be possible on the equatorial margin. Furthermore, the scientists published a letter criticizing proposed roadmaps for the gradual elimination of fossil fuels, saying it's a provocation because they don't seem to understand what a roadmap is. This is very shameful and contradictory coming from great nations. Green capitalism is a system that aims to reconcile environment protections with economic, growth by embedding ecological concerns into the logic of a free market capitalist economy. But that doesn't make sense. The Valley business has a panel at COP30 while financing construction projects in Belém. The company is responsible for the two biggest environmental tragedies in the country, Brumadinho and Mariana. The environment collapse is happening and it's evident. Countries known for not having natural disasters like nations, such as Brazil, United States, and Germany, are some of those impacted. There are countless impacts, most frequent extreme events like hurricanes and cyclones, severe and prolonged droughts. There is a reduced agricultural productivity, most common agricultural diseases and pests, and increased food prices. Without flying rivers in Amazonia, agriculture would lose productivity and there would be a risk of desertification in some areas. The Amazonian forest absorbs enormous amounts of carbon dioxide, helping to curb global warming.
Another inconvenient incident that happened was that the Germany's chancellor, during a congress in his country after he came back from COP30, made weird comments about his coming to Brazil. And even though he is in favor of environmental politics, he is also conservative and anti-immigration, which is not a surprise, right? In response, the governor of Pará and the mayor of Belém criticized his speech on social media, saying that it was a prejudiced and arrogant thing to say, especially since all the population was very welcoming to everyone coming to the event.
Meine Damen und Herren, wir leben in einem der schönsten Länder der Welt. Und ich habe einige Journalisten, die mit mir in Brasilien waren, letzte Woche gefragt, wer von euch würde denn gerne hier bleiben? Da hat keiner die Hand gehoben. Die waren alle froh, dass wir vor allen Dingen aus diesem Ort, wo wir da waren, wieder nach Deutschland zurückgekehrt sind in der Nacht von Freitag auf Samstag.
And also, if it is the 30th COP, why hasn't the climate crisis been at least almost partially solved, and actually has only gotten worse? The truth is that making actual changes are too much for politicians and other people who have power, because what really matters for them is to make money, and green capitalism means getting out of their comfort zone. Then, concluding with all that has been said, we need to know that questioning and searching information you constantly receive is practicing critical thinking. Very important so you don't fall for false propaganda on the internet, which happens all the time. That's what we tried to do with this video, so we hope you could understand our message, and thank you for watching.